Today I'm going to be reviewing the Edelkrone Wing 3. Now if you're like me, you like having equipment that's lightweight, easy to carry around, doesn't add much extra bulk to your bag, and is something that you can easily take with you and not really have to think about it. Now I myself have just recently started my own videography company, so I've been investing in equipment like crazy as of recent. So I was looking for a nice, good, easy to carry around, compact camera slider that's still high quality. This little device is about 5 inches long, about over an inch wide, and probably like 2 to 3 inches tall, but it still gives you a 1.3 feet travel distance for sliding. And it can support setups up to 3 pounds. Now the weight limit is something you need to heavily consider before you purchase any of the Edelkrone Wing systems. Now if you're like me, you're gonna be using small mirrorless systems such as the Sony a6300 or even the Sony a700 or the Panasonic GH4. These small compact cameras with small and light lenses such as prime lenses like the 35mm or the 50mm prime, then the Wing 3 should work out fine for you as long as you're not going to add any giant really hefty fluid heads to the top of the wing. Then you should be fine overall. But if you're going to be using a DSLR system like the Canon DSLRs or Nikon DSLR systems, then you're going to have to move up to the Wing 7 because the Wing 3 is just not going to be able to support the weight of those heftier cameras with their heftier lenses. The same can be said if you're using a mirrorless system with a big meaty lens. Let's say you're using a Sony a6300 but you're going to put a 24-70 f2.8 lens on it. That's going to be way too much weight for the Wing 3 to handle. So you're probably going to have to move up to the Wing 7, and then if you're going to go extreme and you're going to do a whole bunch of rigging to your camera before you put it on the slider, you're probably going to move up to the Wing 15 as well. But if you're like me and you're trying to stick to minimal equipment to just get that perfect shot without too much hassle, too much fuss going on, you're just going to use your simple mirrorless camera with a nice prime lens and maybe a light microphone on top of that, you should be fine. You can probably also add a fluid head to the top of the Wing 3 if you can find one that's light enough. I personally just use a ball head. It's light, it's easy to carry around with me, it doesn't add a lot of bulk or heft to the system, so that's what I prefer. But I believe Manfrotto makes a fluid head that's about 1.5 pounds, so that should work perfectly fine as long as you're not adding a bunch of extra accessories to your camera. You're just sticking to the camera and maybe a prime lens, and that's it. But if you're gonna add, anything extra to your camera, maybe a microphone on top of that or anything else like that, the fluid head's probably not gonna work out for you. Now, actually using the Wing 3 is much different than any other camera slider out there. Now, if you've never heard of Edelkrone before, you've been missing out on some of the most innovative products you can find for camera equipment out there. I got a phone call in the middle of my recording. So let's try this again. This is the Edelkrone Wing 3, and as you can see, it's extremely small and compact. It's essentially just the size of my hand, not that big. And unlike traditional sliders that just go down a rail system, up and down, just 2 rails, so this kind of twists outwards. So if I start here and I twist this out towards one direction, then twist back into another direction, and then in the end you're getting about 1.3 feet of travel. Kind of. There's an asterisk there because when you're twisting out, as you can see, you get a little dip up there, and if you make it completely straight, it's actually, I'm trying to push it back now, it's actually really kind of hard when it's straight down to twist back to the other side without getting a lot of jitter and like bumpy video. So that is a concern there. You do have to figure out how to use this. It's much different than a traditional slider. What I do essentially is I just have one hand on the camera and then one hand on this corner joint right here. This is obviously attached to your tripod. And then I just hold my camera, pushing my camera in one direction or the other. And then with the joint, I push up or pull back. So you can get a nice smooth slide motion out of that. It's not gonna be one-handed operation like a traditional slider. You are gonna have to use both your hands for this one. One hand pushing, the other hand either pushing or pulling. works perfectly. You get nice smooth motion, no problem at all. Obviously it is a manual slider, so if you like shake or get bumped into there, obviously your video is going to shake. But the closer you get to one of the ends, the harder it is to actually get nice smooth video, because it starts to, as the show starts to lock up towards the end, and you can't really easily push it back once you made it straight. So that's a bit difficult to do without getting bumpy video. But if you do use two hands, like I said, you are going to be able to overcome that problem, because it does actually rotate 360. You can actually go all around the slider, no problem. There's no locking here. It doesn't seem to break anything as far as I can tell. So you can go completely around. So if you do use two hands and just use one hand to push and pull the camera, and then the other hand to push and pull this middle joint between both ends, you could potentially get that 1.3 feet of travel easily without any problems at all. You are just gonna have to practice at it a lot. And you do get this tension knob here. You can actually adjust how much tension you get when you're sliding. Just screwing it all the way down locks the slider for the most part. It's not a perfect lock, as you can see. It does wiggle a bit there. Unfortunately, unlike the bigger sliders that have a locking knob, the Wing 3 does not have any way to lock it down, so it's completely still, no movement at all. I didn't know that when I purchased it. I thought they all came with that locking mechanism. Unfortunately, the Wing 3 does not. I was a little bit disappointed on that. And I tried to make an excuse for Edelkrone. I said, why didn't I add a locking mechanism to the Wing 3? But honestly, this is a company that's so ahead of the game when it comes to engineering and so innovative that this seems like something their engineers could have clearly overcome. I know it's a much smaller size than the other ones, but you could have easily added a locking mechanism to this. Beyond that, you can get around it with just tightening the tension knob all the way down until you can't tighten it anymore, and does semi-lock it down for the most part. There's still a bit of wiggle there. It's not perfect, but it's not going to be enough to really cause any problems with your video if you just leave it on your tripod all the time, which is actually something you can do with their Wing series. I don't know about the Wing 15, but I know for the Wing 3 and for the Wing 7, you can basically just tighten this onto your tripod and leave it on all the time. That is what I do personally. I just have it on my tripod at all times. You never take it off because there's no real need to. I'm not afraid of anyone bumping into this. It basically extends the same length as my lens on my camera, so I don't really have to worry about that. It doesn't add much extra bulk or heft to my tripod or my camera setup when it's all put together. So I just tighten it down to my tripod and leave it on there all the time. So if that's what you're looking for, this is definitely the product you should get. Now, beyond not having a locking mechanism and getting some shaky video towards the end of the slide distance, there's not much else to complain about. This is actually a really great, well-made product. It feels great. It does have a little bit of weight to it, so it does feel premium, and it accomplishes its goal in a small, easy to carry around package. So if you're looking for a great travel slider, the Edelkrone Wing 3 is definitely the one to get. That is if you can afford the high price tag that comes with buying an Edelkrone product. The Wing 3 comes in at about 250 bucks. Now, there are other sliders that come in at about that same price tag, but on the Wing 3, you do sacrifice the weight limit, and you also sacrifice travel distance. But I mean, about 1 foot in travel distance is enough for me, and I think enough for most people. Honestly, you don't really need that long of a slider to get that shot you need. Most people will only use a section of that shot anyway. And you do gain portability and just convenience, because this is extremely small. You're not gonna have to really think about taking this with you. You can just throw it in your bag. So if you have the money and you know your camera equipment is only ever gonna be under 3 pounds, then I'd say go for it, definitely. And if you have some extra money, I think you can get the Wing 7 if your camera equipment's gonna be a little bit over 3 pounds. Though the Wing 7 does come in at about 450 bucks, so that is something you're gonna take into consideration. Maybe just invest in a normal slider if you don't really need something that's easy to carry around. And just a fun fact for you, Edelkrone's headquarters are actually just 10 minutes up the road from me. I paid for this product, I didn't get it for free. I would have loved to, trust me. So Edelkrone, if you're watching this and you like this video, feel free to send me more stuff to review. I'd appreciate it. That'd be cool. I'll give it back. I just want to play with it for a little bit. Anyway, guys, my name is Joshua Munoz. Stay sexy, and I'll see you sometime.